Next up, we've got Tom Walkden from IDHL. Tom's going to talk about navigating beyond search and social and unleashing programmatic's potential. So I'm pass it over to you.
Thanks for that, Jamie. Just as Rosa, who's more familiar with Teams, I am also more familiar with Teams. So I do apologise about a slight delay there while I kick off, but hopefully you can see the slides now. Now, big kind of introduction, I think, from myself. My name is Tom Walkden. I'm the Media Strategy Director here at IDHL Performance. Some may have heard of IDHL, some may be more familiar with some previous branding of ours, where we had 9 different agencies: WMG, Ingenuity Digital, Equation, and a load of web clients, web agencies in there as well. Recently, and thank God for my inbox, we have consolidated that branding. So we now are IDHL Performance. In terms of a little bit about myself, I've been in the industry coming up to 15 years now, having previously done a couple of years working as a contractor for Google Ads Support, and then joining a small agency called WMG about 10 years ago in order to become one of their first PPC account managers. So for the astute amongst us, my background very much is within the world of paid media. As much as I love organic and all of the kind of activities that we can provide there, I am that type of person who prefers to circumvent all of that and go ahead and actually pay for it. But of course, what we want to do, and the big focus that we have as an agency and very much what we do as a business, is it's all about spending our clients' media spends effectively to grow themselves and their businesses. Jamie's already given you a few little facts about me, very similar to Amanda. I am a big dog lover. I have a spaniel called Parker, not with me at the moment, thank God, otherwise you'd be seeing him jumping around in the background. But really, one of my kind of true passions has been multi-channel strategies, which I appreciate does sound a little bit rude wordish, which I won't use on a public forum, but ultimately our mission as a business is to be driving accelerated growth for our clients and our people. And in terms of part of that mission, we also aim to partner with best-in-class publishers and tech, which will allow us to achieve the results that we can and have achieved for our varied client base. Now, the talk that I'm going to give you today, this talk actually comes on the back of some activities that we've recently done in partnership with one of our programmatic suppliers, StackAdapt. I will do a quick introduction into StackAdapt in a second, but what I'm going to be talking about today is how we can start to almost reach different audiences, or the right audiences, through varied different types of marketing that are slightly less traditional than the norm. And by that, I mean avoiding search and avoiding social, and being able to utilize the power of programmatic to truly be able to go after our audiences for that upper funnel activity, to be able to prospect in a very data-driven way. But alongside that as well, what's really important is also to note that we also have in this world a few challenges. And I think everyone from Mike, Amanda and Rosa has done a really, really good job of highlighting some of those challenges that we're going through in an industry. In particular, what we see in most cases is we see a lot of advertisers who are focusing all of their eggs in one basket, or rather all of their focus onto one single channel, are having challenging times at the moment, because the rising costs of digital in terms of the competition impacting CPCs on platforms like Google Ads and CPMs on social platforms is really quite challenging, particularly if what you're doing is you are putting all of your eggs in one basket. You are spending all of your media spend through one particular channel or supplier. So we are very much focused on channel diversification as an agency, and we very much believe in the ethos that, everything that can be made digital will be made digital. So what we want to be able to do in terms of our business and the clients that we work with is ensure that we are pairing you with the best-in-class technologies that are going to allow us to reach those audiences and drive that business growth against your KPIs. Now, a good way to start is just to have a little bit of fun and kind of understand what we do on a normal daily basis. And I think it's really, really quite harrowing in a way to realize that a lot of our time is taken up by digital screens, whether those digital screens are a smartphone. Hands up. I can't see you if you do put your hands up, so I'm going to imagine you've all put your hands up, but hands up those people whose alarm goes off at 7 o'clock in the morning or even earlier than that, and you pick up your phone and it's the first thing you do to check to see what's been happening kind of overnight previously. And again, believe it or not, by the time you go to bed on an evening, you're probably also still staring at your smartphone, or I know I certainly am, don't have that many friends. Between those smartphone moments, there are other times. Of course, we have wonderful gentlemen here having a little sing-song in the shower. We've then got people commuting to work. We've got people who are sat on the tube or the bus or however it is that they choose to get to work if they are working in an office these days, as well as actually at work and then in our downtime. But what's really quite interesting is that through programmatic, what we're able to do is we're actually able to target all of these devices and all of these screens so that we can ultimately be where the audience is. And this is a really powerful concept because when we are focusing on things such as Google search or we're looking at social, what we're effectively doing there is we are advertising to channels that have certain wants and needs for users. Search, very much an intent-driven channel. You only go to search if you are looking for something and you start your query with your various different search queries of what you're actually looking for. For social, in most cases, we go there on our downtime so that we can all have a bit of thumb scrolling moments and going through the feeds and having a look at the stories and having a look at what our friends are up to or other people within there as well. But outside of both of those channels, there are plenty of other touch points and what we would consider to be moments whereby we can reach that audience and we can go out there and we can start to deliver, whether that's across a mobile, across a desktop, across TV, across games consoles or smart speakers, or even digital out of home with these huge billboards, one that you can see in the image there in the middle of a train station, but also those as you're going into city centres and you see the big D60s and the big D90s. Well, the really incredible thing about those is that we can buy all of that inventory through one single source or multiple different partners that we can buy through so that we can test and learn and optimize all of those various channels. So to actually define, well, really, programmatic is the glue that binds digital media together. And in definition, it is the automated process of buying or selling digital media assisted by technology in real time. Now, a few years ago, real time kind of programmatic media buying and bidding was relatively cutting edge. As things have progressed, as Google Ads has got more experienced, as smart bidding has got more evolved, most of these platforms are now bidding in real time or in auction time. But programmatic still can have its benefits because, of course, with programmatic, what we're ultimately doing is buying ads through computers. Aren't we all? Isn't that what we do on a daily basis? But what we're also able to do is we're able to reach those audiences who aren't consuming the more traditional digital channels. When we look at it from the perspective of programmatic versus search and social, and what's the difference? Well, for me, we can define that in three different ways. PPC, search in this indication, is about ads being displayed on search engine result pages triggered by specific keywords with PPC pricing. Social, walled gardens, they're ads displayed on social media platforms targeting users based on demographics and interests or customer data or lookalike data modeling and everything else that comes through there. What programmatic is it's automated ad buying, across various platforms targeting specific audiences based on data. And the way that we can define that is programmatic is all about automation, data, reach and scale and the ability to be able to truly increase that reach of the audience that we are targeting. So where does programmatic kind of sit? And in this vein, what we're looking at is something called the demand side platform, which is what StackAdapt is. For those who aren't familiar with the term DSP or demand side platform, quite simply, it is the technology, the platform, the supplier in which in that one space we can buy all of the inventory together as long as it is relevant for your audiences and the people that we are trying to talk to. In terms of how this sits, really, programmatic as a DSP operates as the bidder in the auction for inventory. So if we were to look at just social, well, within the world of social here, we are quite walled off. You can only really access Facebook data or other people's data directly through there. Whereas with the DSP, what we're able to do is utilize audiences that are created within that platform or build custom audiences, and I'll talk through that in a few moments' time, in order to be able to go out there and drive that reach. And the way that we can drive that reach is through multiple different ways. We've got in-game, display, audio, native, connected TV, video, or indeed digital out of home as well. So it allows us to really capture elements of the quality data that's available out there, centralize it into one section to be able to go out there and to drive that high reach and that scale and the efficiencies that we expect within there. So similarly to the kind of sentence around digital and everything that can be made digital will be made digital, really the future is going to be everything that could be bought programmatically will be brought programmatically, because instead of needing to have thousands and thousands of different relationships with thousands and thousands, if not millions of different publishers and brokers, by utilizing a DSP, by utilizing programmatic effectively, or partnering with an agency who has this type of skill and the media planning elements within there, you're able to drive that high reach efficiencies very, very quickly and rather cost effectively as well. Now, in terms of certain strategies, I think Amanda and Rosa in particular have done a really, really good job of being able to give hints and tips about how to kind of identify that audience and identify those strategies. For me, I'm not going to talk too much through that at the moment, because for us, we have media planning teams that are utilizing various different third-party tools in order to gather lots and lots of research data in order to help you to actually identify that audience. When it comes through to myself and my team and all the elements within there, what we're talking about is how we can go about to activate those channels, what we would need in order to do that, and how fundamentally we're able to drive the visibility towards the audience of interest. There's a few different ways in which we can do that. Video is a hugely popular one. In terms of engagement with ad creative from a user perspective, in most cases, video drives that strongest engagement. And there's a few different reasons as to why. In one case, video is something that we are conditioned to engage with because we're very, very used to things like TV advertising. And it's something that's been out there for a long time. So it tends to be when we are served a video, particularly if we follow things like the Google ABCD principles of YouTube, you will be engaged within that first 5 seconds. Some of you will skip it and others will kind of go through. But when we talk kind of programmatic video buying, yes, we are talking about the pre-roll skip ads if we wanted to, but what we're also talking about is reserve buying and also buying based on completed views. So in a lot of cases, the video engagements that we get will have view rates in excess of 75%, and they will have 100% view rates well into the high 90% because we're buying built on those individuals, how engaging. But as we also are in a world where recycling of our existing assets or reusing our existing assets is something that's really helpful for us, programmatic is something that can allow us to take those video concepts and then start to serve those through TV screens if we choose to. So for those of people who have smart TVs with things like Samsung TV Plus, we can also active those channels through connected TV activities through the programmatic side of things. We saw a picture of a chap having a sing-song in a shower earlier. Well, the way to target that chap is through audio. If he is ultimately listening to any streaming music, or he's using global radio, or he's looking at any of the DAX network, or even Spotify or Deezer, if he hasn't got the premium licensing there, then he will have to listen to those ads within there. And this is fundamentally a way in which we can buy those, as well as things like sponsorships of podcasts and being able to fundamentally go out there to those audiences who aren't for once in their lives staring at a screen, but instead they are listening, and we can engage them in that way. Native and display advertising, two very, very similar concepts for most people, particularly if you're familiar with Google Ads, because display advertising is really all about utilizing those banners to go out to people. But programmatic allows us to combine display banners with native ads. And native ads are those ads that more are in read. They look like they are part of the article that you are reading at the moment. And actually, when we combine those two channels, display and native together, in most cases, we can actually see up to a 30% increase in conversion rate, bottom end of the activities, through the fact that we have integrated what we're serving through display banners and the messaging that we've displayed through native as well. And then the two kind of challenger slash elements that really are quite niche, but for those who have a need to be there, they can be quite powerful. In-game's a really interesting one, not only kind of mobile gaming, but also game consoles. So people playing things like Football Manager and other elements, what we're able to do is kind of put an ad around the pitch so that we can start to really engage there. And that would work really, really well, for example, in the world of finance, where what we're looking for at this stage is we're looking to potentially engage with some of those younger demographics. And this might be a really good way to be able to reach those individuals. And then, of course, the digital out of home, which is fantastic on the retail side of things, but also very, very much powerful from lead generation. We're able to go out there and we're able to buy those massive D90s or D60s or even those slightly smaller kind of high street billboards to really go out there and drive even more awareness and a focus of who you guys are as a brand. And if I just quickly bring us back to what I said at the beginning, which is about the rising cost of digital and how putting all eggs in one basket or that through single channel can start to show diminishing return. Well, all of a sudden, accessing all of these channels in a cost-effective and audience-centric way, if you look at things from your top-level marketing budget perspective, what you would aim to see is those CPCs and those CPMs decreasing over time as we start to see increasing quality of traffic and conversions coming through at the bottom of that funnel. In terms of what makes programmatic more tangible, where do the ads actually appear? It's all well and good saying, yeah, we could do video, we could do this, we could do this. Well, for me, it's actually really great in certain cases to see where some of these ads are shown. So those display and native and video ads, we could advertise on websites, on mobile apps like Clash of Clans. But of course, we've also got things like Guardian and newspaper outlets, as well as, of course, YouTube. Fundamentally, display native and video. We advertise on websites and on mobile apps where relevant. For audio, it's radio, podcast, and music. Things like TalkSport, Acast, or Spotify. For connected TV, Disney Plus, Virgin Media, the DAZN network, all of these various different elements ultimately allow us to go out there. And Netflix, soon to be offered by Xandr, which is part of the Microsoft ads, will also become part of the programmatic atmosphere. And then, of course, from a digital out-of-home perspective, it's about those partnerships with familiar names like JCDecaux and Global that you see on all of those billboards that you drive past on a daily basis. It's no longer a case of somebody going out there with a tall ladder and a big paintbrush and a big thing of glue and sticking a poster onto there. Unfortunately, it looks like automation has replaced that job because now we do it digitally and we buy that inventory digitally as well. Now, I did say I wasn't going to talk too much about identifying your audience, and I'm also conscious that I'm 18 minutes in, so I'm going to quickly just go through. And again, I think what Amanda and Rosa said in terms of kind of identification there is a really good thing to be listening back to. But for us, it's about identifying your audience through various different levels. First-party data profiling, actually profiling your own customer databases to really give us an understanding of who your customers are and how we can target them. Browsing and contextual audiences, so actually being able to target people based on what they're browsing online, also the type of content that they are consuming at that moment. We can bring in third-party data like Experian to be able to go ahead and start to target people based on those mosaic groups, which we can normally identify on the back of profiling that first-party data. And of course, some of the more traditional types such as location, geo-targeting, and also retargeting, the concept of reaching back out to those users who have visited the website and might not have converted or actioned that desirable action in that individual moment within itself. Contextual targeting, for me, is a really, really interesting part of what this does, in particular because we're living in a world whereby cookies are under threat. They will be going relatively soon. Lots of people have no doubt been playing with consent mode recently and a few other bits and pieces coming through. So contextual targeting allows us to target users based on the content. And actually, this is partly where AI comes into this. So StackAdapt utilizes technology page context AI that allows us to actually serve ads very, very hyper relevant ads on placements or websites that are really very much in the context of what we're trying to do here. And in this example on the right hand side, we are serving hyper relevant ad placements based on those sporting and those live score related topics. And a really interesting one that I think is quite relevant for this time of year, where a lot of people have kind of had those colds coming from winter as we've moved into spring. So being able to, again, target based on various different rules, in this case, any content that matches things like throat, sore throat, scratchy throat, cough, common cold, and also things like remedies, relief and relieve, we can serve an ad in that moment where we would expect that engagement to be better and higher. And of course, within general context of outside the web, looking at those out of home or looking at audio, not only are we able to target the individuals who are listening based on really what they're listening to at the moment, but we can also pair that with a creative so that those individuals who are skipping through music or listening to an ad and looking at their phones at the time, we can get that direct click from audio. And then on this right-hand example is a really good example of kind of programmatic out-of-home activity where we're buying inventory on people who are based in supermarkets and are walking around there as well. So just to close, one of the kind of concepts and things that I've just talked through is really about the fact that, programmatic in itself is everywhere, whether we're out of home, whether we're in home, whether we're listening to the radio, or whether we're consuming content on YouTube, we can target those audiences. We can reach every consumer, whether they're on different screens or whether they're on screenless environments or indeed outside of walled gardens like Meta, we can go after those individuals. We have those superior targeting methodologies. And of course, the creatives that we can use here in certain cases can be quite sexy, particularly when we're looking at out of home. So in terms of boiling things down in a nutshell, who? Well, programmatic allows us to target the right audiences. Where? It allows us to find those right environments. And with, it allows us to get that creative right. And just for that final 30 seconds, just wanted to talk through a very, very quick case study, something that we've recently been nominated for an award at the Drum Awards as an agency, is our approach to that channel diversification in our Client Lights for Fun busiest quarter as a result of looking at their total investments, diversifying that spend across the funnel, activating programmatic audiences across multiple different layers and channels, mixed in with the work done on social and search. What we actually achieved was some pretty incredible results. 46% revenue uplift through paid search at the bottom of the funnel, 10% increase in AOV, 22% increase in revenue year on year for pretty much the same cost, and loads more transactions and 15% ahead of revenue target, which is the one that certainly keeps me in a job, hopefully. So there you go, a little bit of an overview into programmatic.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Tom. Just to wrap up, we'll just have one quick question. Not a quick question, right now as you can, but you spoke a little bit about the death of cookies and a lot about the different channels that you can serve on programmatically. Do you have a view on the best way of measuring the effectiveness of things like digital out of home, video on platforms like Teads and things like that as part of the overall marketing mix?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. And you're right there, whoever asked that question in relation to kind of the cookieless feature and the cookieless targeting, it is very much a nail biting moment in the world of advertising. But fundamentally, there are solutions. And one of those solutions is making sure that we are gathering consent for our users and we're passing that consent back through so that we can activate data modeling within the platforms to be able to make some assumptions. But in terms of that question in itself, Jamie, which was very much focused on kind of the measurement of things like out of home, as with everything, is a challenging element to measure because we're kind of trying to measure the impossible, but there are various different ways in which we can do that. For things like out of home, what I would be suggesting at all times is that we try to embed measurable widgets within to the ad. So QR codes, for example, are a really powerful way of being able to do that. And we've recently been testing QR codes with a lot of our clients for things like out of home and video. And one thing that we found is that the scan frequency is very much tied into the video frequency. So How many times we've served that ad to an individual normally denotes how long it's going to take us to get that scan. And in most cases, it was anything between 2.5 to 3.5 times before we got that scan. But the great thing about having that scan is that embedded within the QR code, what we can actually do is we can UTM parameters within there. For those who aren't familiar with UTM parameters, the little tracking elements, little bits of text that we would tie into a URL. So when somebody were to scan that QR code, it would take them through to their website on their phone. Those UTMs would then be picked up in GA4, and we can start to understand how that traffic of those individuals who scanned it have created it. And one final thing as well, just on GA4, most people hate it. I'm not going to lie, I also hate it. It's probably one of the most difficult things that Google have done to me in a long time. And that's really coming from me because I work in paid rather than SEO, where you get this every other week from Google. But GA4 within itself does have the ability to look at first user source and session source. So it's actually much, much better at being able to understand where those traffic and that goal has come through in that first initial source of the user versus everything else coming through there. That won't help, of course, looking at how many people have viewed your billboards, but for that traffic that hits the site, we can measure all of that as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Tom.